Hey guys, how's it going? David here. So, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Warner Brothers' latest attempt to try to milk the shit out of this franchise. But now we got Fantastic Beasts, Where to Find Them, my review for the film, starring Eddie Redmayne amongst this rather stellar cast. Once again, directed by David Yates, who is very familiar with the Harry Potter franchise because he did the last 3 or 4 movies out of that series, and he tried to break away that with Legend of Tarzan. Well, there you go. So he's now back with the Wizarding World. And I know I'm coming off as a little bit cynical, but that's mainly because of the monopoly of how these prequel movies are just rolling out lately. We started with the Star Wars prequels, and then we had The Hobbit in the past couple of years. That didn't necessarily work out. So now we got Fantastic Beasts. So I went in very, very cautious. Having seen the film, I can definitely say I liked it an awful lot. Didn't necessarily love it because there was something in the movie that the trailers didn't necessarily show you, and I'm gonna try my best not to actually spoil every single little detail about it, but what this movie is about is we got Newt Scamander, who is this wizard from England touring over to the States, New York especially, where he has a little bit of a hidden agenda, but tagging along with him is this suitcase filled with magical creatures. And of course, whenever magical creatures are contained in one place, but they're just bound to run amok as soon as those latches break free. But Newt has a very deep relationship with these creatures. He's kind of like a zookeeper for the Wizarding World, so when they escape, it's up to him as well as Tina, this agent of like the American version of the Ministry that kind of keeps wizards in check in America, along with this muggle or nomad, nomad that they call him in America, Jacob, played by Dan Fogler, set out to try to retrieve these creatures and keep the Wizarding World a secret. Now here's the deal. That's initially the premise of the movie, and I was loving that premise because even though we've kind of seen that kind of premise before, it was kind of Jumanji-ish, it was still tying into the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. There were references here and there, not necessarily to the Harry Potter storyline, but to things that would happen in Hogwarts, things that are kind of practiced there, wands, spells, things like that. There's a spell used at the beginning of this movie that was a throwback, and it brought me back to 2001 when the first Harry Potter came out, and it was very nostalgic for me. And I was loving that entire aspect of the movie of Newt going out trying to find these creatures while at the same time elaborating what these creatures do, what they came from, and how he loves these creatures just like humans kind of love their families. And the relationship that he was building with these other characters, Tina, their relationship, I was liking that, and I was liking Dan Fogler's character, who from the trailer looked like he was just going to be the bumbling comic relief that was going to get on my nerves after a while, but thankfully he was used very effectively. He wasn't annoying. He was actually kind of held back, and that kind of made him even funnier, but at the same time also very likable. And just that whole aspect of the movie I was loving. So it was a humongous shame to see that the trailers did not necessarily show, they kind of showed inklings of it. You kind of see Colin Farrell looking with his haircut looking kind of sinister in the background, but it looked more like a behind the scenes thing. The trailers didn't tell you, and I'm sorry if I'm kind of spoiling it. I'm not going to go into too much detail. It's not a spoiler review, but let's just say that aspect of the movie that they didn't kind of touch upon in the trailers makes up for about half of the movie. Half of the movie is actually what's happening behind the scenes, and that kind of let me down, at least for this first movie, because they are saying they're gonna make 5 of them, 5 movies. It's gonna be a quintology. So to me, knowing that going into the movie, I was like, okay, they have to pace themselves. They have to set up this world, set up these characters, and set up this corner of the universe that we hadn't seen before taking place in America, so that then when the sequel comes and they make things darker, they kind of raise the stakes, they can then use the story that they used in this movie for that second part and use it in the sequel. And instead, they sandwiched it in with Newt trying to find these creatures. And that could have been a story saved up for the sequel, whereas the first one could have been this lighthearted adventure, because right off the bat, you can tell that the tone is very different from those last few Harry Potter movies, which were intentionally dark. This is supposed to be much more of a I don't want to say whimsical, but a much more lighthearted and bright adventure that you're supposed to tag along with Newt and company, and I love that part of the movie. But then it keeps bouncing back to what was going on with Colin Farrell, Ezra Miller, this thing with this sect that's trying to kind of bring a second Salem witch trials to the forefront. And again, all that stuff could have been good if they maybe have saved that for a sequel and they kind of paced that a little bit better. That way we understood more things about Ezra Miller's character and Colin Farrell's character, as well as more things between Newt and these other characters that were introduced that I was liking. I just wish we could have spent more time with them instead of kind of flip-flopping back and forth. It was trying to be two movies at once. That being said, I did actually like almost the majority of this movie. I love the magic stuff. I love how ever so often we would delve into the wizarding underbelly of New York City and seeing how it takes place during the 1920s. You have like an elven singer dancing around singing like in the 1920s, like a flap, dressed like a flapper, and I love that blend of those two cultures along with this make-believe culture that there's so many moments in this movie where I'm like, God, I wish I could do that spell, or I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do that. By the end, I was liking the characters, I was liking the cast. Eddie Redmayne, I can't remember the actor's name, but the actress who played Goldstein, as well as Dan Fogler. If there was any weak link, I would say Colin Farrell. He's just kind of brooding for the majority of the movie, and I was kind of hoping he would be a little bit more immaculate with his performance, but it is what it is. And yes, being that this is a prequel taking place in the Harry Potter universe, there's bound to be a couple of mentions, certain names said here and there that people are gonna pay attention to and be like, oh my god, did they just say what I think they just said? And I wish I could talk about them, but I'm still thinking as to whether or not I'm going to be doing a spoiler discussion, spoiler review, especially because of how this movie actually decides to end. It's a rather intriguing one that I'm open to having a discussion for, but for now I will say that I really did like this movie, but I feel like I could have loved it if it had decided to identify with one story or the other, particularly the one about Newt trying to grab these beasts that were very imaginative. Every time I saw a new creature, I wanted to know more about its strengths, its weaknesses, attributes, where they live, the habitats. I wanted it to be like an interactive version of that book that existed in the Harry Potter universe, only brought to life. But thankfully, it's still crafted very well. It's still handled with care, both by the actors and by the directors, which leads me into actually wanting to see a sequel. I'm open to seeing that second movie. That leads me to rating Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them a high 8 out of 10. It's definitely a very good movie, a very warm and heart-lifting movie, something that is very welcome to. It's kind of like welcoming back into the wizarding world without thinking about all that death and destruction that happened towards the end of the Harry Potter franchise for those of us who wanted to revisit that universe. That about does it for my review. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them in the comments below. If you have seen the film, what are your best memories of the Harry Potter franchise, both book and movie alike? And of course, don't forget to like this video, share it, and check out my channel for other videos, including some recent playthroughs of Dishonored 2, some unboxing videos, some vlogs, and if you're looking forward to seeing more of that content, then please hit the subscribe button, and I bid you guys good tidings. See you guys next time.